Come one, come all, to another episode of Gacha Review. Today, we'll be looking over some core aspects of Alchemy Stars, those being the story, the characters, the gameplay, and miscellaneous features including the gacha. These are things I personally consider when starting a new gacha game, but if you don't care about something or really only want to know about one thing in particular, feel free to skip to that section. Now, without further ado...
Primary control, normal, biological modules, in hibernation, life support, operational, current capacity, 1 person, generator, normal, attempting to start, failed to start, failure counts, 3,921, power level below normal, 7% remaining, maintaining energy saving mode. Please sign and confirm.
For 17 years, the Navigator, believed to be the only surviving Celestite, has been hidden away from dangerous eclipsites within his colossus, Soraz, a giant sentient airship who is psychically linked to Navi. For these 17 years, he spent the entire time trying to contact other Celestites to no avail, as well as never finding a way to be able to exit his colossus. One specific day, all of this changes. A group of aurorians is detected outside fighting against some eclipsites, accidentally damaging and consequently leaving an opening in Soraz, finally giving Navi the chance to leave. He manages to telepathically communicate with one of the aurorians, Vice, guiding her through battle so that she comes out victorious against the enemies that had outnumbered her. Vice is part of the Illumina Federation, and as things go, we befriend her, and soon find ourselves thrust into the middle of a war against the Eclipsites involving several factions of Aurorians with different ideals and agendas, all while we're on the quest to discover the secrets of our own race. Now, there were at least 2 or 3 words in that plot summary that you've never heard before unless you've already played this game, so let's explain what they are. Aurorian is a race in the world of Astra, where Alchemy Stars takes place. While most of them appear very human, they're not bound by the limits of humanity, many of them having animal features and others even straight up being furries. Though the exact reasons aren't clear from the beginning of the story, Eclipsites are the race that Aurorians are directly at war with, being much more monster-like in appearance. Last but not least, Celestites are, well, exactly what Navi is. They were once a peaceful race who could engage in psychic communication with Colossi, but 17 years ago, their land was invaded and turned to smoldering ashes as well as most of them were. The main story follows the plotline of this war between the Aurorians and Eclipsites and the many things left unsaid. In my opinion, Chapter 6 is where things start to pick up in terms of interest with the story, but personally I'm not super invested in the main storyline's plot. While the world and mysteries behind it certainly have potential, I feel like a lot of the times Alchemy Star plays it safe. This feeling could also be due to how simplistic the writing is. It almost feels childish in a way, and that isn't helped by the fact that I really don't like any of the main trio. I'm sorry. The story isn't bad by any means, and as a matter of fact, if you're someone who's not a fan of how dark or gritty things like Arknights or Path to Nowhere can be, I actually recommend Alchemy Stars. Even though I no longer read the main story, I'll still dabble in reading an event if the faction it's focusing on is what I'm more interested in. And on that note... The characters in Alchemy Stars are divided into factions, each of which have their own fairly distinct vibe while still fitting in unmistakably well with the entire world's aesthetic. If you're someone who keeps videos on as background noise while minimized, I totally understand you, and that's why I'm quickly calling your attention to watch the screen for this segment, as I'll be talking a bit about each faction while showing some of their most notable members on screen so you can get a feel for the overall vibe of the world's sci-fantasy aesthetic, as well as an idea of what the characters from each faction look like. That being said, the city built on a floating island called Azurite is the center of Aurorian civilization. With a powerful protective barrier, it is also the safest stronghold in the world. There's a strict hierarchy here. The governor, the elder council of the nobles, and the priests of the temple, who together govern a large number of civilians. Lumopolis sees itself as the protector of astral civilization, accustomed to dictating what goes on in the outside world. However, with the rise of Illumina Federation, Lumopolis's high officials have become increasingly alarmed. With the huge undercity Ganon at the center connected to several nearby settlements, this military group formed as a base to serve as the first line of defense against Eclipsite invasions. The military first system was vigorously promoted, scientific research received heavy investment, education was made accessible for all, and a civil service system was established. At present, the Illumina Federation is committed to uniting factions to establish a unified and just governing body. With its continuous growth, the Illumina Federation is gradually branching away from Lumopolis. Umberton is a collection of towns beneath Azurite, and is also the most accessible location in Astra. It began as the slums of Lumopolis before evolving into a hub of commerce and trade. As its influence expanded and the population increased, Umberton became autonomous. No longer under the authority of Lumopolis, Umberton is now controlled by local guilds and major gangs. Now for the other factions that aren't directly tied to the main cities and regions. Up north we have Northland, engulfed in winter all year round and sparsely populated. The great snow-capped mountains to the north of the border were once the home of an entire aurorian tribe, who eventually left this land in search of warmer climates. The remaining aurorians there have thrived, calling themselves the people of Northland. Even though the Northland authorities are a formidable force, they rarely involve themselves in Astra's affairs, living an unsullied existence where all important matters are handled by their queen. Rediesel Wrench are essentially the Mad Maxers of the factions, a disorderly and no-nonsense nomadic alliance made up of travelers, adventurers, and bounty hunters. Using righteousness as a criterion, those who are deemed worthy by the majority are elected as leaders. With the Lizard Colossus as their mobile base, they wander the dunes in their tattered vehicles, either pieced together or modified, living an unfettered, carefree life. The True Order is a secret society with a long history that has no fixed territory. Its fanatical and zealous members always lurked among astral cities, and wandered around indistinct gray zones, promoting their own ideas and philosophies. It is said that the True Order believes that the history and tomes made public by the Lumopolis Temple are false, and that they are committed to unearthing the buried truth. With those 6 explained, it's safe to say that across the vast continent, there are many small communities, unidentified organizations, and denizens of ancient ruins. Due to distance, their insistence on independence, or because they're already wandering nomads to begin with, they do not belong to any power within the astral civilization at all. They are the independent. Their appearance and clothing, way of life, and cultural customs vary. Some even remain unknown, such as the guards in certain ruins. Last but not least, the only faction with no playable characters, but one we've somewhat taken a look at in the previous segment, there's Eclipse, a multiracial and multi-regional organization whose core leader is rumored to be a powerful, high-level Eclipsite. The organization is said to possess a wealth of mysterious knowledge and resources of unknown origin. It claims to be able to realize the ambitions and dreams of its members, and by using this as bargaining chip to recruit rebels from various forces and races, it has attempted to launch one attack after another on the cities of Astra. Out of the playable characters, they each have 3 gameplay categorizations. Rarity, ranging from 3 stars to 6 stars. There are technically 2 stars, but there are special cases. Class, and attribute. But what exactly are these things, and how do they impact the unit's performance on the battlefield? Alchemy Stars has a turn-based combat system that's characterized by its tile-connecting moving system. Basically, imagine if chess had 4 colors instead of 2. Of course, as you can see, there's quite a bit more to it than just that. So let's go over the class and element systems to understand what's going on a bit better. There are 4 elements, called attributes in this case, that all units and enemies fall into: fire, forest, thunder, and water. They follow pretty much the exact same logic as any other game that has similar elements. Fire is weak against water and strong against forest, which in turn is weak against fire and strong against thunder, which is weak against the former and strong against water, who's strong against fire, and the cycle continues. One attribute being advantageous against another means that they'll deal 120% damage against targets with that attribute, while being disadvantageous means they'll only deal 80% of their normal damage. The same logic applies to receiving damage. Now that that part is out of the way, we can explain chains. Connecting multiple tiles of the same color is what generates a chain. Depending on how many tiles you've connected, once you've reached the end of the chain, the units in your team will be able to proc their passive skills, known as their chain combo, as well as just hitting enemies on the way. Chain combos vary from unit to unit, each one needing a different amount of connected tiles to proc, as well as oftentimes increasing its effectiveness, whether it be damage, range, or supportive abilities, as more tiles are connected. Using Vice as an example, since she's our companion character, her chain combo triggers if there are at least 4 tiles connected, dealing 140% damage to the 2 nearest enemies. If there are at least 8 tiles, that's dealt to the nearest 3 enemies, and if there are 12 tiles, that's dealt to 4. If 15 tiles or more are connected, you'll enter something called Aurora time, essentially freezing time as you get 1 extra turn and the enemies stay frozen in place. This connects to the attribute system in a very significant way. The color of the tiles represents the color of different attributes, and only the allies of the same attribute color as the chain you've created will be able to attack and proc their chain combos. The exception to this rule is the captain of your team, attacking enemies and activating their passive no matter if the color of the chain you've created corresponds to their attribute or not. 5 and 6-star aurorians gain a secondary attribute once you get them to their 3rd ascension, so in Vice's case that means she can attack when moving in both water and thunder chains. As well as their elemental system, all units also have a class, this not affecting their effectiveness against enemies, but instead determining their actual utility within combat with their active skills, aka skills you can proc manually and that have a cooldown time of a certain amount of rounds. There are 4 main classes: Converters, oftentimes the most useful units to have on your team, who change the colors of tiles, which can allow you to traverse the grid and create chain combos, divided into 3 types. The Normal Converter, who can change the color of a determined amount of tiles. The Cross Converter, who will convert all tiles in a cross shape from where they first activate their skill. And last but not least, the Resetters. Detonators are fairly simple, they do big damage, usually the best kind of unit to have as a captain. Snipers, once again, self-explanatory, able to attack enemies that are distant. Many of the units within this class have an active skill that allows you to specifically choose which enemy to attack, no matter where they are on the grid. And supporters are the supporters. They can heal your team, debuff enemies, or provide an array of different buffs, one of which is the Double Chain, an active skill that some supporters have which allows all chain combos to trigger twice. Teams consist of 5 Aurorians and can be set up however you like. I personally choose to have 4 separate teams divided by attribute, but that isn't necessary. What I do suggest though is having at least 1 unit of each class with a detonator as the captain, so no matter if you're able to trigger the rest of the team's chain combos or not, you can still do some good damage to the enemies. All Aurorians have a thing called equipment, which isn't a gear system in any way. It's part of your unit already and basically serves as a buff to them as you level it up. Equipment levels go from 1 to 10, sometimes reaching a level will increase the unit's stats, while sometimes it'll actually give them a pretty important buff and make their utility quite a bit better, so don't forget to level up your equipment. Breakthroughs are the dupe system in the game, and its importance can greatly vary depending on the type of unit. You need 4 dupes in total to reach max breakthrough. The first / 2 levels, depending on if we're talking about 5 or 6 stars, can be reached purely with heartstones, the currency used to increase breakthroughs. While it's by no means necessary, having at least 1 dupe is honestly ideal when it comes to almost every unit, as it changes the active skill's cooldown time upon entering combat to preemptive, allowing you to use it right away instead of having to wait however many turns. Certain units are an exception to this, most notably Cross Converters, who need to be a max breakthrough in order to make their skills preemptive. Those are the core mechanics of the gameplay. Now let's take a quick look at what there is to do in terms of playing the game. As per usual, there are story stages and the farming stages. Farming can be made simpler using something called carriers. Each run can use up to 2 carriers, and what they do is multiply the amount of rewards a singular run will give you, as well as consume the same amount of prisms as if you were running it more than once. 1 carrier will give you double the rewards and consume double the prisms, while 2 carriers will give you triple the rewards and consume thrice the prisms. This is the most useful feature of the auto farm. The max amount of carriers you can naturally have is 10, and they recharge on your Colossus, something we'll get to soon. With or without carriers, you can select how many times you want to farm a stage, and the game will do it without you needing to interfere, the stage playing out how many times you chose from beginning to end. This is why the carriers are great, because instead of having to wait for a whole stage to play out 15 times, you can wait for it 5 times instead while getting the same amount of rewards. Other than this, there are a few other things you can do to pass the time when you have no prisms to keep advancing the story or farming. There's the Calamity Codex, a weekly challenge where you can fight against a boss that has infinite HP with 4 teams and see how much damage you can deal in total. The incentive to do this comes with the rewards you'll get depending on the rank you end up in. They go from bronze to paragon, and the rewards you get increase with your rank. At least getting to platinum is ideal, since that'll reward you with 150 lamamber once the week resets, that amount not going up for higher ranks. It also gives you a certain amount of calamity boxes, 8 at platinum, and it goes up to 10 at glistening diamond. The boxes give you an assortment of level up materials, as well as a 5% chance to drop a star flare. Secret Territory is a fun little dungeon crawler exploration mode with 5 levels, each ending in a boss. This also resets every week, and by week I mean Thursday. Oh yeah, I should mention this. Alchemy Stars is weird, and for some reason its week resets on Thursday. I don't know if there's a reason for that, but it's what happens. Anyways, it's a fun way to kill some time. And while it doesn't use up the normal stamina system, it does use its own called MS that you generate on your Colossus. The weekly reset also resets the Secret Store, one of the exchange shops exclusive to the currency you get by playing Secret Territory stages. There you can buy furniture for your Colossus, gifts to increase your Aurorian's affection, as well as 2 stamina recharge packs and 2 star flares every week. The Spire is a challenge mode with 4 different spires you can play through, each being linked to an attribute so that you can only bring units of said attribute to play it. Each spire has a total of 100 floors. Beating each floor gives you some good rewards, as well as getting a star flare for every 5 floors. There's also Into the Abyss, which is also an exploration mode, though I don't exactly know how to explain it, and there's net zero information on it on the wiki or anywhere else for that matter, so I'll just link a video if you're interested. But there's one more thing you can do to pass the time. Fishing, building stuff, breeding plants. Cloud Garden first came out in June 2022, and I played it so much for the first few months I got extremely burnt out. The memories of everyone playing the new Animal Crossing game in 2020 came flooding in, and it felt like I was experiencing that but on a smaller scale. It's just a chill, fun time, and if that sort of Animal Crossing-esque gameplay isn't your thing, you can just play it a little bit until you get some of the Lamamber rewards and not really pay attention to it other than that. Even though some of the events have had a separate mini-story that's tied into the Cloud Garden gameplay, it's not something you have to do unless you really want to. As I said, I enjoyed it a little too much when it first dropped and ended up completely burning myself out. But sometimes I do find myself opening it up after a stressful day just so I can run around with my favorite characters in this cute little world. There's another place with 3D models of your units running around though, that being the Colossus. It's the base feature of Alchemy Stars, with various different sectors that recharge various different things, such as prisms, the stamina currency used for Secret Territory, heartstones to level up breakthroughs, and carriers as the most notable examples. Friends can visit your Colossus and leave you gifts. Don't worry, it's a fully automated thing that just randomly chooses 2 of your friends and one of your own Aurorians to give you some presents. There are 2 possible gifts, one being 4,500 Nidium and the other being 30 Lamamber. I've been writing this script over the past few days and tried to observe if there's any specific pattern to it, but whether you'll receive 2 Lamamber gifts and 1 Nidium one, or the reverse, seems to be completely randomized, though it never seems to give you 3 of either, and if that's a probability, that just hasn't happened to me. One last important feature on the Colossus is the dispatch office. When it's fully leveled, world, you can have 4 simultaneous dispatches while having 9 total dispatch attempts that each take 7 hours to recharge. Each one calls for a team of units that are a certain attribute and class. The more units you place that fit into the requirements, the closer the reward will be to what's indicated. You get a handful of rewards, but the most notable one is the Lamamber. Different star levels of dispatches give different amounts. 3 stars giving 10, 4 stars giving 15, 5 stars giving 30, and 6 stars giving 40. The possibility of getting a 6-star dispatch seems to be random, but every day there are 2 5-star ones, and if you happen to get a 6-star one, it'll replace one of those. But doing 2 of those 5 stars as well as 2 4-star ones a day can end up rewarding you with an extra 90 Lamamber per day. Outside of the Colossus, there are various shops complete with the non-playable shopkeep character Gacha games seem to love, with various different currency exchange shops such as the dupe currency exchanges, the Secret Territory Exchange Shop, the Cloud Garden Blueprint Store, and of course gift packs, gacha currency, and the Skin Shop, all of which require real-life money. There's also the Special Event Book, a task point ladder that resets every 6 weeks, that you level up in by doing certain quests every day. Certain quests for each event that happens while the book is still up, usually 2 events as they tend to last 3 weeks, and certain quests in general to complete before the 6 weeks are up. You get plenty of rewards from it, including 4 star flares and a free skin for a lower rarity aurorian, while there's also a paid version that gives you even more rewards, such as 3 special star flares, 1,500 Lamamber, and a skin for a higher rarity aurorian. But now, the time you've been waiting for has come. Time to explain the gacha. There are 3 main gacha currencies: star flares, used for the mainstay and rotating banners; special star flares, used for limited time and exclusive recruitments, aka new characters who will later join the mainstay pool and new characters who will not, respectively; and Lamamber, the base currency. It can be used for any banner, and 300 Lamamber is equal to 1 star flare, special or not, meaning a 10 pull is, well, 10 of those, or 3,000 Lamamber. The base probability of obtaining certain rarities is 55.5 for 3 stars, 33% for 4 stars, 9.5% for 5 stars, and 2% for 6 stars. Each time you pull and don't get a 6-star from the 50th pull onwards, the probability of getting one will increase by 2.5%. So that'd be 4.5% on the 51st pull, 7% on the 52nd, so on and so forth, until you get to the 90th pull where it's 100% guaranteed. Unlimited time recruitments, the probability does carry over onto the next banner, and if there are 2 limited recruitment banners at the same time with the same event, this probability mechanic accumulates and applies to both banners. On the topic of limited recruitments and thus write-up units, the guarantee mechanism is separate from the pity system we just discussed. If the 6-star aurorian featured as the write-up on a banner doesn't come home after 2 off-banner 6 stars do, the next one is guaranteed to be the write-up unit. This applies to limited recruitments and standard write-up rotating banners. Now that we know the rules and rates, how much of the in-game currency can you actually obtain? Lamamber is the universal currency, being used on all banners, so let's go over that first. Every day you can get 50 from completing your dailies, being 350 at the end of a week. On the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th of every month, you get Lamamber from the login bonus, 50 the first couple times, and 100 on the last 2. That, completing your dailies every day, and getting to Platinum every week on Calamity Codex brings you to 2,300 Lamamber at the end of the month. If you have bad luck with visit gifts and only get 30 Lamamber every day for an entire month, that'll still leave you with an extra 900 at the end of a 30-day month. Plus, there's the whole dispatch office ordeal which I explained before. While you don't get special star flares for free, you do get normal ones. Every month, you get 1 from the monthly login, and if you manage to rank high enough in Calamity Codex and get the 10 boxes, at the end of the month with 40 boxes received and with some pretty average luck, you should get 2 from that. With the weekly secret store reset, that's 2 star flares per week, leading to 8 at the end of the month. In total, that's 11 every month, plus the 4 from the secret event book that resets every 6 weeks. The gacha itself is not that bad. If you look at the spark and the guarantee systems separately, they're pretty good. It's just the combination of the two that can be somewhat concerning. Thankfully, to balance this out a bit, the game actually is pretty generous in terms of giving out gacha currency, especially around the time when events are happening. So take that information however you please. And that's it. Alchemy Stars review done. Technically, it is more of an overview than a review, as I don't give many opinions and just state what the game's about, but it rolls off the tongue easier in my opinion. Ironically, before I made this video, I'd taken a few months long break from the game, but recently got back into it to take advantage of the incoming anniversary and decided it was great timing to make an overview on it. On a personal opinion note, the reason I'd stopped playing it in the first place was because I just really didn't like the writing of the game. It's not my jazz, and while the events are hit or miss for me, so many of them had been misses as of late. The only faction I can know for certain I'll enjoy if there's an event surrounding them is True Order, while Umberton and Rediesel Wrench are 50-50 depending on the characters that are the main focus. But at the same time, so many characters are so good, plus I find the gameplay pretty fun and I couldn't stop myself from coming back. That said, it's highly possible that after the anniversary celebration ends, I'll uninstall it again because writing is a huge part of what makes a gacha game interesting for me. But hey, not everything is for everyone, and I'll probably continue the install-uninstall cycle if there's another event in the future that I feel I'll enjoy. I don't want to make this too long, and my throat really hurts from talking this much, so I'll cut myself off now. But if you're able to, consider checking the link in the description and supporting me on Buy Me a Coffee so I can pay my bills and you can get a doodle. That's all I have to say. If you're new here, feel free to stick around. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you another day.